I went on a sheep hunt. And we had horses, and we went way up the top of the mountain looking for sheep. And it started to snow. And we found a cave. And we went in the cave and slept in the cave for the night. Yeah.
Were you there?
We slept there for 3 days.
And the next day I shot the sheep.
What kind of sheep was it?
Rocky Mountain Bighorn.
Did you think you were like David? Did you think of David?
Well,
There was Indian
I don't
petroglyphs
know what I
around
thought
on the
about
inside.
it.
It was what, Stephen?
There were Indian petroglyphs.
Oh, no kidding.
That's
He had
cool.
another time where he went up to Alaska with Tom Walker and lived in a tent, and the snow got so bad that he couldn't leave the tent. And if you went outside to go to the bathroom, you had to tie a piece of rope on, because if you got away from the tent, you were done.
You get lost.
He said, when you go outside, it's snowing so heavy, do not lose sight of the tent or you will never find it again. And you'll die out there. So when I went out to go to the bathroom, I washed the tent. Then I went back into the tent.
Steve, could you prompt him for the story where the horses took you up? I'm not going to remember it perfectly, but like the horse, and that's why I need you to tell it. The horses took you up this mountain, and then it was like dark, so you had to trust that the horses were, and they jumped the chasm. Yeah,
That was in the Yukon.
that was in the Yukon.
But Dad and I hunted.
You're nuts.
We
You know that,
we flew into Atlin, BC,
British Columbia.
British Columbia, and we were
Okay, it's 360 degrees. You don't need to do it. Yeah.
So we went to Atlin, BC, and hunted with a guy by the name of David Stair. And they took us into a lake, and then we took a boat to the other side of the lake, and then we hiked in 22 or 24 miles, and we had all of the equipment on our back and all of our food, with the understanding that we were going to eat our food up for the first 2 days. So we had pork chops in aluminum foil, and we hiked over 24 miles. Took us 2 days. And we got to the spot, and they were supposed to drop off the food. Remember?
Yeah.
And so the next day, the clouds came down, and we couldn't get our food. And so the next day we thought, oh, it's no big deal. And we had cup of soup and Hershey's chocolate bars. And we would divide a chocolate bar in half, and each got a half of a chocolate bar for a day, and a cup of instant soup.
Slim pickets.
So day 2 comes around that we've been out there, and Dad says, we're going to die if we don't shoot something. So we had a 410 pistol, and we went down to the pond, and we were trying to shoot these ducks with the pistol, 410 pistol. We couldn't get close enough to the ducks. And we're like hunting around, and the ducks swim away, and we couldn't get any ducks.
When was this? What year?
I don't know, day 3 comes around, and Dad says, he says, we're going to starve to death if we don't get something to eat. And the guide says, if I allow you to kill a sheep, I'm going to be banned from being a guide forever, and I will never be able to follow my dream, and I'm done. And Dad says, too bad, we're gonna die. We got to shoot a sheep. We got to shoot a ewe sheep.
Did the
Was day
guy
3.
start looking pretty good at this point?
Day 3, we didn't shoot the sheep. So day 4, we get up, and Dad said, that's it. We're shooting a sheep, and you do what you want to do, but we can't survive. We're killing a sheep. and the guide says, okay, you can shoot a sheep. Well, that morning, the clouds opened up, and all of a sudden, the Super Club flies
Plane
in.
came in.
Wow.
And they had all these boxes of food, and they flew over at about 100 yards, and they pushed them out of the plane, and they would hit, and the salami and
Hey, spread all over.
so if you have a cardboard box of food, hits the bottom, and we wrote this thing that says leave LV radio, RADB Lake. And so,
Like with stones?
no, on the side of it, we took tape and put it on the side of a tarp
Okay.
or like a tent fly and left a message, and the lady gave us a like wag of the wings. So then what happened was
Is that what they call
the
it?
food is dropped off, and we're like taking bologna off the willow trees.
So you didn't have any water in it?
We had water because you could have as
right
much
out
water as
of
you
the
want.
tree.
And Dad says it's like the Berlin airlift. It's like the Berlin airlift. And then all of a sudden, this big grizzly bear comes in,
Uh-oh.
gosh.
and it comes in, and you know the deal with a grizzly bear is it came downwind,
Oh.
which means it smelled us. And it got to about 40 yards. So not very far, 30 yards, 40 yards, and it stops. And Dad says, we split up, and he says, we have bullets in the gun. And he says, if it comes, you gotta kill it. And we're eating their food. And the bear can smell us, because the bear can smell the food too. And we thought we were done. And then all of a sudden, this great big bear goes up on his hind legs, smelling like this.
Was he licking?
Yeah, and you
Wow.
could smell. And then he went down and turned and went away.
Oh my God.
And Dad said, safety off, and if it comes, you kill it.
And would you have been able to kill it with that gun?
Yeah.
You
I
were ready? You
shot it,
were
oh,
ready
yeah.
to go?
We were both ready to shoot, and the bear turned around to the left. And so we ate our food, and then we walked 2 more days to Beeve Lake, and they flew us out, and that was our hunt. Never got a thing.
Wow.
Really?
Got some stories though.
And you paid money for this,
You know, some of the slopes are so steep,
Oh my gosh.
and you'd be
That was the
walking
scariest thing.
along the side and look down, and he said, take your feet out of the stirrup,
That was a different one. That's the one you're talking about.
because
Nice.
if that horse goes, you'll go with it,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have to jump off.
What the heck?
And
and they pay money to do
because I
this.
mean it's so steep, and sometimes we'd walk along.
That was the one where we were hunting. That was in the Yukon with Johnny Bigfoot. No, Gilbert Johnny. And Gilbert Johnny had his bottom 3 fingers bit off by a horse. The horse bit his fingers off, like from here, bit him off because he was really
The horse
mean.
bit him off.
And he would take
Johnny
a
Gilbert
stick.
was mean?
Uh-huh.
Johnny Gilbert.
They
His
call
name
it
was
the
Johnny
fall.
Gilbert.
He was mean.
He was really mean. And Johnny Gilbert would whack the horses with a stick, and when the horses were going along, he'd tie the reins of the one horse to the tail of the other horse. So they're in a pack line, pulling on one's tail, pulling on the other one's mouth. And he was really, really mean. And so Dad and I went out one day, and I said, Johnny, if we could just get to the top of that hill, if we get to the top of that hill, I think we'll find sheep. So we get to the top of the hill. It got so steep going up the hill that we had to get off and pull the horses. And so the horse would hop up. And we're to the top and we're looking. And then all of a sudden, we're to the top. And it's so steep we can't go back. And Johnny says we can't go back. And we were hunting in August, so the sun sets around 11:30, something like that, in the northern Yukon. And we have to go off the other side. Well, the horse can follow his trail back, so we could smell his tracks. But because we had to go back the other side, the horses didn't know where we were going. So we go off the other side, and we couldn't get the horses to go down because it was so steep. So we had to pull off their saddles and carry them down maybe a couple hundred yards. And we're pulling these horses and they won't go down the hill. And Gilbert Johnny says, if we can't get these horses off, we're just going to have to kill them and leave them up here. You'll have to pay for them. And I'm thinking, holy fuck, $1,500 a horse or $2,000 a horse. So we're whacking these horses, trying to get them to jump on the side, pulling, and all of a sudden it like they jumped off and we got down the I'm talking really steep down the other side. So we get down maybe 400 or 500 yards. We put the saddles back on, and then it starts to snow those big wet snowflakes. And my dad was
In
mad
August?
at me. Oh yeah. It starts to snow those big wet snowflakes. Dad is so mad at me, and we get down, and now it's almost midnight, and we start a big fire, and we got to spend the night there because the horses don't know how to get back because they don't know the trail, and we have to go around the mountain to catch the trail. So he says we got to spend the night there. So we had a little blue tarp that was 4x6 and wet horse blankets that we gathered under and spent the night under this tarp. Dad was so mad. I said, Dad, we're not going to die. We're going to be cold and we're going to stink like horses the next day. You remember that, Dad?
It was bad.
Well, whose
I
fault
was
was
so cold.
it? Who got you up there?
What do you think?
Steven
Steve.
Willard.
Why did you go there?
Hunting sheep,
That was a stupid
hunting
thing.
rams.
So I thought they,
Wait, Steve.
did they jump?
Yeah, they jumped over these chasms, right? That's
Yeah.
my favorite part of the story.
So,
Me too, Cass.
but have you ever heard that part of the story? So
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So anyways, on the way out, the first or second day, we would ride during the day, and it was just getting light. And we came to these like caverns, and they were like big cracks, and they might be from me to Krista, just a little too far for a person to jump, about like this, maybe 30, 40, 50 feet down, like huge things. And you'd follow that until it got to a place where you could get, like, from me to Krista. And, like, that's nothing for a horse. Just too far for a person. I thought maybe if I ran, I could jump to the other side, but not with all my clothes and gear on. And so what would happen is the first guy gets there, and that horse gather itself like this, and just jump over a piece of cake. And we did about 3 or 4 of those. We got to the spot, we hunted all day, and what happened was we hunted up this side hill, and we found the sheep, and Dad and I are about halfway up the mountain, and the sheep spotted us. And if the sheep spot you, you just have to lay down. So we lay down on the side of the mountain for 4, 5, 6 hours maybe.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Long time.
And you just lay there and you sleep until the sheep get up and move around the other side, and we just laid there. And so then we went up to try to catch him. We couldn't catch him. We went down. By that time it's 10:30 at night, and we start heading back, and it was us, me, Dad, Gilbert Johnny, and some Indian lady who was the worst cook ever. And on the way back, it was dark, and you'd feel your horse start to gather. You get to the thing like this, and your horse would go like this. And when you feel the horse start to go down, it would jump
You
over like
better
that.
hang on.
And that's the one also where he said, whatever you do on these side hills, you let go of your horse, take your feet out of the stirrups. And so my horse, I'm walking, because Dad said, this is bad, this is really bad, this is really bad. So I'm walking my horse, and my horse's name was Hammerhead. And it got stung by a bee. And it jumped off the hill. Honest to God, jumped off the hill, hit a pine tree, dead on with its head, dropped over. I thought it was dead. It knocked itself out. It's laying on the side hill.
And he had the name before this happened?
Yeah, his name was Hammerhead. Hammerhead jumped off, hit the tree, dropped there dead. I thought it was dead. And then after like 10, 15 minutes, it starts. Do you remember when my horse jumped off and hit the tree?
Yeah.
Wait,
What a trip.
two of these. So, are any of the sheep from that hunting trip in the basement?
Did you get any
Mine.
sheep?
Okay.
Did
I
you
killed
get
the second
Well,
largest
you
sheep in
did good.
Yukon that year.
And did you
Good
ever
job, Pop.
leave behind any supplies?
I gotta go see the glass onion.
You did a good job.
Did you leave any of the supplies behind so they'd be more likely to be able to make those leaps?
No.
You'll never forget the glass.
Yeah.
We love you, Pop.
That's the time that
More than
Willard, they got a horse stuck in a swamp. Tell that horror story about the horse stuck in the swamp.
No, you tell
You remember the horse that got stuck in a swamp?
it. Yeah.
So they had a pack horse, and they went across a swamp, and the pack horse got up over his belly, and they couldn't get it out.
Oh, jeez.
And the horse is screaming and hollering. Tell him.
No, the Gilbert Johnny said he was gonna shoot it.
Yeah. And they took the panniers off the back, took everything off. They hooked a rope around his horse's head, and they hooked 2 or 3 horses up, and they're trying to pull it out. And the horse is screaming, and they can't get it out of the swamp, right? It was stuck
Yeah.
In the Yukon?
in Yukon. And Gilbert Johnny says, we're going to have to shoot the horse, and you're going to have to pay for it.
That's his favorite line.
That's yeah.
And so then what happened? How they get the horse out?
Yeah.
How?
We got him out.
It
How'd
was
you
not
do
good.
it?
Bob
How'd you
kicked
do
his
it?
butt to save the 15.
And we got him out.
They, horsepower, hooked him up by the head, yanked him out. It's not good.
No wonder they bit Gilbert
Right.
Johnny.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street.
That's like a trip from hell.
Let me tell you something. When we were in
One trip.
Kenzie, we were in the Yukon, or we were in British Columbia, and we got to the Copper River Basin, and we had a 12-horse pack line, and we got there, and the water had gone up 5 feet, and so he says, when you get out to the middle, and your horse starts swimming, take your feet out of the stirrups, hold on to the saddle, and even if you wash down below the saddle, hold on, because the horse will swim to the other side. So the horse gets out, the river's raging,
Oh my gosh.
then all of a sudden, the horse is like this, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, you're heading down the river, like a log floating down the river.
Caught in the current.
Caught in a current, and then all of a sudden the horse is swimming like this, and you're on the back, and you're up to water like this, and you're holding on like this, and then all of a sudden the horse's front legs hit, spins around, and then you goes up like that, and our pack line washed a mile down the river, and it took us a day to find everything. Now
It's the same hunt.
different hunt. Our sleeping bags, every clothes that you have, soaked all the way through. The rifles had been underwater,
Oh my god.
everything. All of our bread was
What were you
soaked.
hunting this time?
Sheep.
Oh, no.
We were in the Northwest Territory.
And you paid for this.
Did you get a sheep?
Yeah, they had shots.
So was that the normal route, and it just
That's
Yeah.
terrible.
was just rushing that day?
And that's the one where I got.
water for
I gotta pause it.
No, and that's the one where I got thrown off the horse. I went out with the Wrangler,
Well, you were like the young buck then, right? 20.
and I went and we So what happened is you'd hobble the horses at night, and they would put hobbles on their front feet, and you let them go, and you could let a bell put around them, and then you get up in the morning and you start to follow the tracks, and then you follow the tracks as far as you can, and then they come to a split, and horses go one way and some horses go one way. So me and the wrangler go check the horses at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we get to the Y, and half went one way, half went the other. And so he says, you go this way, I go this way. I have no rifle, no nothing.
Yeah.
And so we tracked the horses, and I found my set of 3 horses, put the bridle on one, get on it, throws me off. Get on it, throws me off. Get on the third time, throws me off. I'm like, so got the bridle on it, take it back, bring it all the way home, and they're like, hey, how'd you get a bridle on a pack horse? We've never had a bridle on that horse. Yeah, that was and I think I have a picture somewhere of the river. It was a Copper River Basin. Just watch it out. It was really bad.
Wow. Crazy. What a story.